Chapter 2. The First Echo. Calderon moved cautiously, the violin cradled in one hand, the bow in the other. The air around him felt heavy, dense with a palpable silence. Each corridor had a peculiar vitality, more living entity than static space. The walls were polished, yet irregular, sculpted by the unseen, something no human hand could have created. The phosphorescence a suggestion of motion, their surfaces subtly shifted in arrangements that eluded direct observation. What initially appeared to be decorative etchings resolved into something more fluid, a language yet to be deciphered. Beneath his feet the ground was not stone, but a strange material that absorbed sound, each step muted and fleeting, leaving no echo behind. The melody grew stronger as he moved forward. Weaving through the labyrinth like a living thread, it was a layered composition, mournful yet intricate, pulling at him with an urgency that defied explanation. Calderon followed its pull, his movements meticulous but unhesitating, compelled by forces beyond his understanding. The deeper he went, the more the labyrinth revealed itself as a space of contradictions. The walls, though unyielding, leaned toward him, their shifting patterns offering fleeting glimpses of symbols that danced at the edge of his comprehension. The air, calm and still, carried a vibration that resonated in his chest. The labyrinth itself sought to attune him to its rhythm. As he turned a corner, the music swelled, its notes whispering and curling around him. Then a voice flitted into his consciousness. "Why are you here?" The question echoed within him, its source intimate and disconcerting. Calderon froze, holding his breath without realizing it. The labyrinth's presence pressed against him, vast and inscrutable. The voice lingered, demanding a reply. Forcing himself to move, Calderon followed the melody down another passageway, the corridor narrowing as the walls closed in, their surfaces now glowing slightly, responding to his presence. He traced his fingers along one wall, the texture smooth yet alive with a subdued warmth, like skin beneath the surface of ice. The corridor widened suddenly into a circular chamber, vast yet intimate, its atmosphere fraught with an electric stillness. The ceiling disappeared into a swirling mist, and the walls shimmered with reflective surfaces that did not mirror the room, instead displaying fragmented landscapes, forests, cities, and distant horizons, each dissolving into the next as if holding countless worlds. At the center of the chamber stood a pedestal, its surface carved from a dark, crystalline stone that seemed to drink in the faint light. Upon it rested a shard of glass, jagged yet flawless, its surface refracting light into spectral colors that danced across the chamber. The violin's melody grew as Calderon approached the shard, each note in harmony with the hum emanating from the shard itself. He hesitated momentarily, his pulse quickening, then reached out and touched it. The instant his fingers made contact, the world unraveled. A deluge of light and sound consumed him, tearing through his senses with relentless force. Images surged into his mind, each one vivid and unabating. He was a boy again, seated with a violin in his lap, the bow trembling as his father's sharp voice cut through the air. "You'll never amount to anything if you don't practice," the voice snarled, its weight oppressive, each word a hammer against his fragile confidence. The memory shifted abruptly. He was older, standing on a stage, violin in his grasp. The spotlight burned against his skin, and the audience, an amorphous sea of blurred faces, stared at him in judgmental silence. He played mechanically, his bow moving with precision but no soul. The notes faltered, his hands hesitating, and a murmur rippled through the crowd, a wave of disappointment that crushed the air from his lungs. Calderon recoiled, pulling his hand from the shard. The vision wasted away, leaving him in the chamber, his breath in shallow gasps. The shard still rested on the pedestal, its glow blurred but steady. What was that? he whispered, his voice quivering. The labyrinth offered no answer, but the distant violin melody resumed, softer now. It was waiting for him to gather himself. Calderon looked down at the shard again, his thoughts racing. The experience had been more than a memory, an immersion, a confrontation with moments he had avoided for years. And yet, despite the discomfort, there was something else. The music, the shard, and the labyrinth weren't just dredging up old pain. They were showing him something. He took a shaky breath, forcing himself to return to the images he had just witnessed. The scene of his father, harsh and unyielding, had felt unbearable. Now, in the labyrinth's charged stillness, he saw it with new clarity. His father's voice was sharp, even cruel, but underneath the command had been an urgency, a desperation. The memory shifted in his mind. It was reframed. His father wasn't attacking him. He had been pleading, though poorly, for Calderon to succeed. The disappointment had not been malice, it had been fear. The spectacle on the stage unfolded again in his mind, but this time Calderon didn't recoil from it. The faceless audience, their judgmental silence, had always loomed large in his memory. Now he saw himself as the one who had given them power. He had been playing not for the music, nor even for them, but for an imagined approval that had hollowed the experience. The violin, lifeless in his hands, had reflected the void within himself. The labyrinth, he realized, wasn't punishing him with these visions. It illuminated his choices, the times he had let fear, pride, or desperation dictate his actions. It was offering him a way to reframe pain and understand that he had been holding the wrong narratives all along. The shard's glow caught his eye again, its fractured surface refracting light across the chamber in patterns that rippled like water. Calderon felt the echoes of intent in those shifting lights. It offered him a choice: to remain defined by the weight of the past, or reframe the parts of himself from which he hid. The violin in his hands felt heavier now, something solid, something real. He tightened his grip on the bow, his breath evening out. The music, he realized, had never left him. It had been waiting quietly for him to meet it with honesty. Calderon straightened, his back no longer hunched under the weight of what he had seen. The labyrinth wasn't merely testing him, it was teaching him. He couldn't shake the feeling that the echoes he had just experienced were guideposts towards something more profound. The shard had revealed only a piece of what lay ahead, but even that fragment had opened a door he could not close. Calderon turned back to the path. The melody beckoned once more.